Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond, broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Back at you and Gloves Off, and I'm Paul Buitrón. I'm here with Sifu Steve Miller, and we're touching base on internal and I would say external or hard and soft styles, as many want to call them. And he's been around the block a couple of times, different martial arts. He's my brother, and we'll take it that route. And we've done and understand and seen a lot of different folks out there. But how we doing, brother? You doing good?
Sir, I was just prismifying the picture I took of us that I will post on social media so everyone can see that we're doing this live, and it's I'm honored and humbled to be on your podcast, sir. Just a big shout out to the late great Glenn J. Morris. Doc Morris is pretty much our first common bond, and then although I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ now, I'm not active in Freemasonry anymore, but I had a lot of good years and met a lot of good brothers, one of which are you, sir. And man, you've been around the block. You've been in the martial arts. You're a veteran. You're a seasoned veteran, man. Doc Morris used to, heck, you were mentioned profusely in Path Notes. You might have been mentioned once or twice in every other book he wrote. He loved talking stories about you and learning techniques with, he would go, he does French Savate and he teaches straight blade. If you can ever learn straight blade with Professor Buitrón, you got to do that. And Glenn always had weird answers for every question, but he never had a zero answer. He never had to go, let me get back to you. But you'll recognize, he would always go, well, Kohai, here's what you do. And then he would come at you with some weird loony advice about chakras and breathe, put on the secret smile, breathe a red missile at her third eye. That was a trick for picking up a date, courtesy of Doc Morris. I'm sure you have stories of late night pizza delivery and Rusty Nails. His favorite drink was Rusty Nails.
Absolutely. He was a dear friend. I met him through a student of mine, and one of my first Silver Glove, which was Kevin Menard, and Kevin helped me write my first book. And I had known Doc when Kevin used to come around for a very long time, and I was saddened when he left, and well, he's in a better place now. And the last time I talked to him, my 24-year-old was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and we went to Houston, and I took her to it's a Six Flags that's in Houston, and we also went to NASA. And when we were going to NASA, I called him up, and he showed up, and he was with us walking around NASA at the time, and so on and so forth.
Doc Morris?
Yeah, so it was fun.
Around NASA with you?
Yeah, so it was fun. It was fun to have him around.
And what's the other place, sir? It was like a Six Flags of Texas kind of place?
Six Flags. I'm trying to think of what's it called. Astro World. That's it. Astro World. I think that's.
And it's like a space-based amusement park kind of thing or something?
Okay, it's just a Six Flags.
So if it's Astro World, does it kind of tie in with NASA maybe a little bit with the NASA place? Are they close?
No. I think it's just a name. I think Houston just wanted to keep that kind of name. They have the Astros, and they have the Houston Astros, and they have.
There you go.
So they're kind of tying in that spectrum of NASA, but he was hell on wheels. I loved him to death. He was a dear friend of mine.
That's funny when you say hell on wheels, because there's a lot of folks that I tied in with when MySpace was kind of popular, and then even later Facebook, that people that I'd only maybe had phone calls with or never even connected with before social media. So there's one of the pluses of social media, right, sir? And like Todd Smith from Michigan and I, see, here's the thing. The sad thing about Doc is that people wanted his art, and people would, there's there's a few different phases of Hoshin. I guess we'll spend a little time talking about the late great Doc Morris and Hoshin, since we're going to be talking about internal and external martial arts. And then I'd like to spend some time talking about Kajukenpo. And we both have the Parker Kempo lineage, kind of, you're like cousins to us in the Kajukenpo Ohana.
Sure.
So, you know, we kind of have ties on a multitude, I would say. That was fair to assume, correct, sir?
Absolutely. You know, I got involved with Kempo in a roundabout way. I was taught by Sifu Keith C, which at one particular time was Parker's right hand in the 60s. They both were from Hawaii. Keith actually came out of Chow, and he was one of the first of Emperado with Emperado's brother. And he was also Kajukenpo, so we do have that together. He was an excellent man. He was one that, you know, basically taught me Kempo. And it's always been there, you know, and how can I put it?
Hey, I got to interrupt because that's what I'm really good at. Ask Coach Torres. He was just giving me crap about it earlier today. I always tell people I do most of the talking and all the interrupting. Right.
But it's all right. But
so hang on. Do you remember back in the 80s, before Sijo Emperado used the title Sijo, he was called the Professor. Do you remember that? Everybody say
everybody was. Everybody, you know, Professor was a name.
Professor it was a good title back then. See, back in the 80s, Sifu Lopez used to tell me that to be a Sifu, you got to be about 30 or 40. To be a Sigong, you got to be about 50 or 60, right? And to be a professor, you got to be like 70 or 80. And he goes, we only got one professor. That's Professor Emperado. He's the professor. But then finally he became a Sijo, which is cool. You know, people call Bruce Lee Sijo, and I get it. Sijo means grandfather. I got to meet Sijo Emperado mostly because of Grandmaster Bob Suttles, who is, you got to get Bob Suttles on your show, bro. If you haven't had Grandmaster Bob Suttles on your show,
we'll get him.
He's a really good top-notch Kajukenpo player and hell of a Jeet Kune Do guy under the legendary Steve Golden, right? I mean, you don't get much better than that. So Bob's a badass, and Bob is the guy that finally I got to meet Sijo. Bob hosted a big-ass seminar with Sensei Ross Gibbs of Kosho Ryu Kempo, and he's in the Simeon Eli lineage, not in the Juknik or the Hassan lineage. He's under Simeon Eli, Fred Eli, and then later it was crud. There's some other folks that took over after that. So that was Thomas S.H. Young's branch of Kosho Ryu. But getting back to Doc Morris, it's funny you call him Hell on Wheels, man, because everybody I talk to, man, they always, they laugh and they say, the times I had hanging with Glenn Morris, you know, at least Glenn was always a blast to hang out with. And he always had the most left field, far out, pardon my French, shit. Can I say that on your show? He had the most far out shit when you ask a question, right? Am I right about that? Like if you said, hey, Doc, what about, he would go, oh, yeah, here's what you do. And it'd be like weird breathing shit. And you did it, though, and it would work, right? It worked. It always worked. Did he ever do light touch knockout stuff on you?
No, but he showed some of the guys there. You know, he would come in there and play with all the guys in there and work out with them. And it was just fun. It was just fun to watch, you know?
I got hit because so the first time that I met him in Canada, Sensei Robert Futzenreuter, who ran the Victoria Bujinkan, Sensei Dave Button, and a green belt Ninja Cat Kerry Carper. There was another bunch of people there, but those are the three that I pretty much hung out with. I'm sure there's others that we went drinking and everything that weekend. I had so much fun with those Canadian ninjas. And Glenn, what he did the first time, because that was when he ranked me to third degree after years of me learning through long distance, through letters and phone calls. And then I would try the stuff out on people, training with Kajukenpo people, Datu Kelly Warden. I went to a seminar with him, training with Kajukenpo guys, training with ninjas, anyone I could play with to see what, you know, if whatever Glenn said worked, actually worked. And so that first seminar in Canada, I think he just blasted me with all the chi he could muster, right? just smacked the shit out of me all weekend. And at first I was just dying and I was burning up too. I was dying and I was burning up. And then we all went out drinking at some bar and everybody was drinking. I don't even like Jägermeister. I hate that crap. But we had these test tube shots and I was drinking anything I could get my hands on. And then one of these guys, Dave Button, looks at me and he goes, well, I know one thing's for sure. I said, what? He goes, all this stuff that Glenn teaches sure works. I know for a fact because I've been watching you all night, Miller Sensei, and you've drank enough to kill a hippo, but you're still sober. I'm like, I don't know what the hell Glenn did to me. I'm going to go complain to him right now, damn it. And so I did. And I went up to him. I said, Doc, if it was anyone else, I'd be pissed off. You're costing me a lot of money. I don't mind buying rounds and stuff because the Canadian exchange rate was badass back then. It was like $1.65 in my pocket for every dollar, right? So I'm like, I got extra money to buy rounds for everybody, but I can't get drunk. What'd you do to me, Doc? He goes, oh, I improved you, Kohai. I'm like, what improvement? For almost a month, I tried to consume heavy amounts of beer to get hammered when I got home because I was a nervous wreck. I was stressing. I couldn't sleep. I was on fire. I couldn't eat. He jacked me with all this chi to see if I'd done all my stuff right. Or if I didn't have my stuff wired correctly, I probably would have died. I was like, thanks, Doc, for trying to kill me. And then he came to Eugene and he sucked all the freaking energy out of me. It did exactly opposite. I was hiding in the coat closet of the dressing room, and one of my soon-to-be black belts, Maya Kerber, came in and he's like, because I could hear Glenn out in the dojo, and he's like, oh, where's Steve? And I'm like, oh, shit, no, don't. So I'm trying to use every ninja trick I can think of to disappear under this pile of coats that was in the changing room. And Jeremiah comes in there and he's like, Sensei, are you under that pile of coats? And I poke my head out. I'm like, don't tell him I'm in here, Kohai. And he's like, he's asking for you. I'm like, I can't even stay awake, man. I think he's trying to kill me. In Canada, he tried to overload me, and now he's trying to suck the life force out of me. I think he's trying to kill me, Maya. And he goes, well, you better get out here because I don't want to get hit by him. I'm like, find somebody else to take the damage. So I came crawling out, and then he was kind of nicer to me because that was Sunday, right? Saturday, he just beat the snot out of me. And yeah, but it was fun. And then for like 3 weeks, I couldn't barely stay awake. And I thought I was going to die because he sucked all the life force out of me. So I called him and I'm like, Glenn, you tried to overload me in Canada. Then you come to Eugene and try to suck the life force out of me. Did I pass? Is that what it was? You know, because I'm still alive. Thanks, Doc. But he did. He was the man with that stuff. If you ever played with him, do you have any experiences with that guy?
And I had seen him do some stuff with others. Let me tell you something that just popped into my mind. And we're talking about the internet earlier. We came out from the gym. You know, the internet for us was like Buck Rogers. You know, and so we did not know. I did not know. One of my guys comes up and he says, "I'm gonna hook up the Guild of Dancers Savant with a web page and the internet." He goes, "In the internet." He didn't even use the word web. He's gonna. And I said, "Oh, okay, cool." So it must have been 2002, maybe 2001, 2002. Mm-hmm. Glenn had he brought me into Denton. He had a gathering of the ninjas in Denton. And I showed up there and we were sitting down and I told a couple of my guys, you know, we're just sitting down there and I go, just when we do something, go amongst everybody else to help everybody out. And one guy comes in there. There was a couple of guys from Australia.
The guys from Australia?
Yeah. There were some guys from Australia and he goes, you know what? We've heard a lot about you with web. And then I talked to somebody else and goes, I've been hearing a whole bunch of stuff about you on web with web. So I went up to one of my guys and I said, "Hey, bro, if you see a guy here by the name of Webb, point him out to me because I think he's talking some shit. So I'm gonna have to go talk to him." And he goes, "Sir, that's the internet." You're gonna be fucking kidding me. So I said,
"What guy you keep talking about, right?"
So I said, after that, we're eating lunch, and I go, "Pop it up," and one of them pulls up a laptop that was real big and pulls it out and starts putting up there. And I started reading what they had posted or what they had done with the website of the guild, and that was my first experience with the internet. The web was with Glenn, and Glenn started laughing when he heard about that.
Man, you just brought memories back of the old Hoshin chat room back in the mid 90s, earlier to mid 90s. It was mid 90s, probably 97 or something. Do you remember that Hoshin chat room that he had?
No, it wasn't. I wasn't internet. I was not even on the internet until about 2004, 5.
I worked in the internet starting around 98, 99, maybe even 97-ish. My old man had an internet company called WinCorp for a short time out of Eugene, and I was selling DSL when it was hot off the shelf. And so that was cool. And I did do Hoshin chat with Glenn because he's like, well, if you're going to be one of my Udansha, you'd better be on the Hoshin chat, Kohai. And I'm like, all right, dog. But then there's all these keyboard warriors on this chat forum. And I'm like, you guys should go out and train more often, because I came from Kajukenpo where people would beat the snot out of you in training. You don't talk smack about each other's teacher. There's going to be a van full of brutes there at your house to whoop your ass into shape.
Absolutely. See, a lot of people don't understand that. I came up through that, and when I was teaching I've been teaching since I was 18. Savant, and I was teaching Savant.
That's no joke. You got Savant, you got American Kempo lineage, you got the Hoshin because you were like one of Glenn's board of instructor guys. Like he always said that if you ever go to Texas, you need to go see Professor Popeye. Like he was like, that's our Hoshin guy that does French straight blade foot fighting. That's your guy. And he said he does la cane, the cane, right? And I'm like,
yeah, that's right.
I'm like, that sounds like
I'm trying to think, when did Glenn passed? About 2005?
It was 06. He passed in 06 on April Fool's Day. And the thing about Glenn Morris, check this out, man. That Saturday, I had a class at 10 or 10:30 at Sifu Bob Suttles, Grandmaster Bob Suttles, Pierce Family Gung Fu School, a Kajukenpo school in Eugene. And I was renting space there a couple days a week. And one of those days was Saturday morning class. So I would come in at 10 or 10:30, teach for 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. Sifu Suttles usually had his black belt class that Saturday, like one Saturday a month or 2 Saturdays a month, whatever. I was already there by default, or I'd have been sleeping in anyway. But man, back in those days, Doc Morris, when he passed away, every one of his people, or at least most of us. So when Mark Lawrence had texted me, and I got a couple other people texting me, I had already gone from rushing to get down to the school to open up and teach, taught my class, pick up my cell phone, and there's messages just blowing up my phone. So I call Mark Lawrence, and both of us are in tears because he told me what I feared the news was, because these brief text messages and voicemails I was getting from people gave me a pretty good hint that no wonder I woke up feeling really weird. And I felt like somebody I couldn't see was in the room with me all freaking morning. And so did everybody else that I ended up talking to that day that Glenn died. So that was another real weird thing about Glenn Morris. He was like the freaking Obi-Wan. Like he was a lot like Dick Severance, who apparently, I met another guy a couple times, Bill Atkins, Shidoshi Bill Atkins. And he trained with a lot of the guys, the really good ninjas in the Pacific Northwest, which is my hangout. And all those guys that Glenn was tied in with had some weird wizard skills, and I guess you could attribute it to esoteric or occult teachings. Personally, as a Christian, I don't really dabble with all that stuff anymore. I do kind of use some of the tools. I don't think that breathing, mental focus, and physical conditioning are wrong. I think there are things probably that God gave Adam and Eve and pre-flood humans that was a spiritual, biological, scientific tool. Because in the Bible, we have warriors that fought under God's protection and things like that. And the Knights Templar, we we could go on and on about that for hours, I would imagine, sir. So I think that it's really important for people, especially since we're on this subject. Another thing is, if we're talking about internal, there's got to be external to go with the internal. You've got to have the balance. So breathing, focus, there are different things that different schools of thought in that arena utilize or implement in the training that they profess or offer. And for me, as being especially, so 30 years of my life, I was a Mormon, and all that stuff lined up. As long as I didn't do anything that went against the church, 15 plus years, I was a Freemason. None of the martial arts and Freemasonry were ever in conflict, so it was never a big deal. Now, as a Bible-believing Christian who was born again October 7th, 2019, my choices on everything are a lot different. So I want to make that abundantly clear to whoever sees this or listens to it. But again, I think there was, I don't think there's a difference between white and black, anything sorcery, magic. When you start talking about that, what I'm talking about is, I think there were things that Adam and Eve might have had access to in the garden, and that pre-flood humans knew. But now post-flood humans are using it, like Aleister Crowley said, for the few to rule over the many. And the currency of the Luciferian elite is secret knowledge. So I think when we're talking about internal versus external, I think it's really important for all martial artists to spend a lot of time on external arts and be very cautious and selective when it comes to any internal disciplines that
Absolutely.
they ascribe to.
Absolutely, because folks can go out there just because of curiosity and dabble into things that end up becoming bad without them ever even knowing it. They were bad from the beginning. And in the martial arts, one has one's physical essence will eventually become his inner essence. If you want, and the more you practice,
the two kind of bleed into each other, the internal and the external. That's why you kind of have to be. This is what everyone talks about, whatever circle, whether it's a politician like JFK calling out covert means and secret combinations, or whether it's a wizard or Dr. Strange telling you about secret combinations. Because if you want to get into some of the basics of like Kuji, I just gave you a few of the mudras, and then it can be as simple as praying hands, or putting the fingers together in a very basic position that might not seem like it's anything at all. Look at how many reporters might sit there with their hands like this. People don't even know what this means. But there's actually a difference between doing this or doing this. Most people have seen this, or probably Dr. Strange in the beginning when they all had the hoods on. They're using this, or they might be using another one, which is, pardon me, it's a little harder for me to do these days. It would be this one. They might be doing that one. So there's all these different little secret combinations. Thought, word, and deed is the key to any internal program. So when you think the thought form, you chant a mantra. So mandala is a thought form, mantra is a word form, and mudra is a hand sign. And you have thought, word, and deed. And when you integrate those three concepts or principles or practices, because what they're doing, what the ninja would do too, is they would take each hand sign and they would trace a grid, and then they would juji that grid. You see in Kung Fu, you'll see the Shaolin monks will do something after their salute, and they might end up like this, right? And then you see ninja do their grid, and they go pow with like a juji, right? So what they're doing, and you see Dr. Strange with his energy bracelets, and all these guys doing all these secret combinations. Well, that's the deal. So you have to be really careful when you're picking, trying to cherry pick this stuff, because even if you dabble in stuff and you go down the wrong, it's a lot easier to stay on the right track than to go off of it, find your way back, and try to get back on the right path again. Mark my word.
Correct. And that's what happens with a lot of stuff. That's what happens with Internal arts. Let's just look at internal arts. Let's look at a lot of people looking at iron palm training.
Yeah.
How many people have screwed up their hands with iron palm training? Just because they think and they saw something and they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to try this because they're doing this. And all of a sudden, now you have a problem. Okay. If you would have done it.
A little bit of from punching as a Kajukenpo guy before I started consulting with Glenn as a mentor over the phone and stuff. And he goes, oh, Kohai, don't punch it. He goes, you don't want to be like those karate guys that punch those fence posts and stuff. You want to heal? I'm like, yes, sensei. He's like, slap it. Use your palm. So I was using bags of filberts and stuff. But then even then I was having problems. Like you said, people do stuff and they learn it the wrong way and they end up hurting themselves.
You know, one of the most common mistakes is people start getting, they want to do iron palm and all of a sudden they start getting chrome steel BBs to put inside. Well, guess what?
You got to start with dried peas and stuff and rice grains and things. And
absolutely. So what happens?
Small, not big ass shotgun slugs. Like some guys go out and just go for the gusto. You got to start really, I mean, I guess even Rudy Terlinden mostly used mung beans. I learned from the late Frank Dendas before he would teach Frank how to use even small BBs. And then they had buckets they would jab. And then Rudy had buckets he would poke and jab and punch, Bapak Terlinden. And he would also hit bags that he would fill, that he would hang, is what Uncle Frank told me. But Frank said that Bapak Rudy would use even himself, mostly mung beans. So ladies and gentlemen, not even a grandmaster of Indonesian silat was using tiny BBs unless he was doing his advanced stuff. Anyone who's trying to use like Japanese pachinko balls and any of that crap, that's stupid. Unless you're like
the chrome can actually be, how can I say, absorbed within your skin. You're going to have some bone problems and cartilage problems in the future.
Forgot about that. Good call.
And a lot of people say, no, it doesn't happen today. You know, it happens very quickly.
Really? That's serious. I forgot about that. Good call.
And
that metal will seep in when you're hitting it once or twice a week. If you're hitting it for 30 minutes or whatever, it's going to soak in, especially if you're using any pre-training jowl. That's even worse. That's like putting what's that DMSO or whatever that you can get to swab on a car handle or anything. Spies would use that shit to poison each other, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, the combinations are out there. You can actually be poisoning yourself. You're doing more harm to yourself than what
will help your skin absorb. That's a really good call, sir. I totally forgot about that. I'm glad you pointed that out. Yeah, there's a lot of there. We could probably list 5 or 10 hazards of just like striking your striking conditioning, like, because pretty much all the striking conditioning is basically punching stuff. And then, you know, like Kajukenpo, Sifu Lopez, I first started learning Tiger and Crane, right? You're doing all that before you start doing all this stuff in different directions. Like we would do this pushing and then bring it back. We would finger jab, roll it, finger jab again, out. Sifu Al, they all taught this stuff. And then you start, you know, going through all your motions. So, you know, and then it's all basically, then you progress and you're hitting harder stuff. And we did all those drills where you're doing like the star. I did a basic variation of the blocking set, right? Where he taught a star block set, right? I wrote like my own version of this star block set. Then we could do that where you beat the shit out of each other's arms with the same drills. We would call it building purple mountains and earning your badges for the day, right? Badges of honor.
That type of conditioning, it's needed and it's not needed at the same time.
Well, you know, it turns you into a tough son of a gun, Professor.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be careful how you do it, though. You really do. Because, like, there was stupid crap that we did as testosterone-driven teenagers that, man, I'm still busted up. Like, I got this elbow. Hang on. Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my Lord. Praise the Lord. I'm still alive. I got this knee that's banged up from wrecking a scooter with Clayton Myers and Tavis Wagner. We won't even go to the details. Mike Bradley, I think, grappled me in the courtyard at Newburgh High School to bitch at me for wrecking his scooter. Then Brian Fraser helped me break my right ankle. So I wasn't even in my late 20s by the time I was kind of hobbling a little and a bit Glenn was like, at least you're not gimpy. Smack! He didn't even need to hit you hard. Like, he hit me one time with that. Remember, he'd go, hit the vagus nerve, right? How many times did he tell you, hit him in the vagus nerve? Like that, you know, he had a couple shots he liked to take. That vagus nerve crap, man, I don't know if he ever hit you with that. Did he ever hit you with that thing? Shit, dude, he hit me with that in Canada. Do you want to hear about that?
Go ahead. Tell another Glenn story.
That was the real deal. All right, so I threw this punch, right? Morris slips it, right? Comes up and like he takes his hand and all he does is kind of go like pop on the side of my head, right? And it seemed like time stopped and I looked at him out of the side of my eye and I'm like, and he looked at me like, and I went whoop, like a wet noodle. But what also happened was first I saw everything kind of normal, then it got fuzzy. Then it looked like he pushed me back through a Viewmaster or something in my own head. Then it looked like my brain went into my feet and I was looking up through a tunnel to him and my body. Then it felt like all my awareness went into a pool beneath my feet. And then I felt like I could hear this really small Glenn Morris voice through an echo where he was telling people about what was happening to me for a second. And then I kind of came back. I was like, and he's like, are you all right, Kohai? And then he smacked me around a little bit to revive me. And I was like, holy shit. That's what he jacked me up with that kept me from getting drunk for like a week and a half after it might have even been a month. It was 2 weeks or a month after that. That weekend was such a blast. And Glenn Morris, dude, he could smack your ass. Bill Isley has video of him doing this stuff where we all like blindfolded and closed our eyes. And we lined up with like our hands on each other's shoulders, right? And he stood about 5 or 10 feet away and he did this push-pull breathing crap. And he literally took our line and made our line of people go forward and backward and then toppled it. He did some really cool stuff that was legit because I told everybody, let's try to disprove him. He always invited people, go ahead, whatever, you know, because he was cool.
He was cool.
He was an old rogue. He was a little trickster. He liked to play.
You know, I remember when his book came out, he sends me one. He goes, "Oh, this is for you." And I lent it away, and it grew legs and walked off. I'll have to get one. But he was good, folks.
Now I know what to send you for Christmas. I can write a little something cool in the front. That'll be cool. That'll be a blessing to me. Because
let's talk about that. Let's talk about.
I'll send you an ebook copy, Irena. This is me asking you without asking you for permission to send Professeur Buitrón a copy of Path Notes of an American Ninja Master on PDF because I have it, but I don't really share it with people because his widow there was even a debate about the poor guy. He was such a stud. He had like a Hugh Hefner kind of air. Like all the ladies thought he was hot. There was a chick named Lindsay Pierce from Eugene. She was a licensed massage therapist. She even hung out with the old man. He rode in her little yellow jalopy truck that was nicknamed Buimac Smog. It was B-U-I, Buimac, M-A-C, Smog, S-M-A-U-G, some Hobbit crap or something, she told me. I think it was Matthew Hayward's truck. And Doc, I remember Doc's bald ass head in the back window of that little jalopy pickup taken off from my apartment complex, like, because he was staying with me that weekend. And Lindsay Pierce was driving Doc off into the sunrise because it was the morning of one of the Saturday or Sunday, one of those mornings. But even she, I think, had a little crush on the old man. All the ladies like Doc Morris. And man, that dude, he could kick your ass and he didn't look like much more than a college teacher. He really did look just like a college teacher. But he would kick your ass. That old dude knew his shit. He would put you in.
He was good. We all had some good times. I think the very first time he came into the school must have been 94. We're at the big school. And
in Laredo?
No, we're in Dallas. Laredo, he came once.
Was Menard hanging around back in these days?
Yeah. He was the one that brought him in.
I like Kevin Menard. He's a cool cat. Unfortunately, he kind of took a big step back, especially after Doc passed, and he just said, let the art die with the man. I respect that because I love and respect Menard. I could call him Dr. Menard. Great guy.
He's a good brother. He's
One hell of a fighter too. That guy can kick some ass.
He was good. He was good.
I don't think we've ever even met, but I think Glenn said enough cool stuff about me, and he loved you. He loved Doc Menard. There was a couple other guys that I never met for years that I met on social media well before I might have met face to face, So this is great hanging out and chewing the fat, shooting the breeze with you, sir. This is a blessing.
But it's good to hear the old stories of the old guys that made some influence on folks, and Doc Morris, I can see that he made a hell of an influence in you. I can see some of that wrestling.
Whatever you saw him do with you directly in your training and dabbling and just hanging out, or you could see him use his charm on the women, or he could literally like just wave a hand like Obi-Wan and these aren't the droids you're looking for, and go to the bar and do all kinds of cool shit. He was the coolest dude to hang out with. Plus he could kick just about anybody's ass, take your girlfriend home, save the day like Remo Williams, like Chun from Remo Williams, like Professor Xavier from the X-Men, like Miyagi from the Karate Kid. He was all that rolled up into one. I could call him on the phone. Oh, another cool story. So I called him on the phone. I called Doc Morris on the phone, and here's what happened. So I'd always space this freaking stupid 2 or 3 hour time differential, right? So I called him one night, and it was pretty late, and Ari picked up the phone, right? And Ari answered. I was like, oh, crap, it's late, because I could tell they were kind of snoozing out. I go, crap, you guys sound like you're falling asleep or you fell asleep. She's like, yeah, but I'll give you Glenn. I'm like, sorry, Ari. She's like, hey, that rhymes. She's like, later, Steve. And I was like, oh, crap, I'm busted. Glenn's like, go high, what do you want? I'm like, sorry, Doc, I keep forgetting about the stupid time golf. And he's like, yeah, what do you want? So I asked him my question. I got my answer, and I thought, oh, crap, he's going to get me back for that for somehow or another. We hadn't even met face to face, but like we had profuse phone calls and whatnot. I even did some Ninja Recon guy on some dude named Steve something or other with a chick named Julie something or other that ripped off the Pacific Biotech Corporation that he had going, because they ended up running off to Portland. And he's like, hey, Kohai, I need you to do some recon for me. Sent me a video of this guy because this douchebag had been on the news down in Texas. It was kind of fun because I got to play like 007 that didn't really do much. I just took some pictures and walked past the house and kind of followed them around for a little bit. If I remember their last names, I'll throw it out there because my memory is 47 years old now, but it's like photographic or semi-photographic. The only reason I ever passed German or my poor algebra class, I was just exchanging with my beloved pre-algebra teacher, Mrs. Pam Sherman. I hated math. I posted that on a Pikiti Tertia thing about math was my nemesis. Even though I respect sacred geometry as a former Freemason, don't ask me to do math. I always told Pam Sherman, you don't need math in the real world. I'm going to go do construction. She goes, you freaking need math for construction, you idiot. And I'm like, fuck, I got to find something else. Okay, I'm going to go do this. She goes, you need math for that, you fool. And I'm like, damn it. I'm going to find something that doesn't need math. She was right. Math is an essential skill. But I was like, screw algebra, Mrs. Sherman. Fractions and decimals are hard enough. Why do you have to put the alphabet with the numbers? But you know what? Kajukenpo has a drill, Professor. And most guys and gals in Kajukenpo will call it 6 count. Everybody knows about 6 count. It's a formidable drill. You know, I throw 6 techniques, and on my 6th one, you counter it, and you throw 6 techniques. Boom. And on your 6th one, I counter it, and we just keep going. It's like a hubud or some shit, right? Sort of. I do 6 count, but I call it X count, and I teach 3, 5, and 7 counts. What do you think of that, Professor? You know where I stole that from, don't you? Right? The middle pillar. Because we attack the center line, so we have 3, 5, and 7. And my 3 might be as deadly as my 7. Depends on if you have a knife or we're emptying at it or whatever. But my 7 might suck worse than my 3. It depends on whether I want to kill you or I want to take 7 moves to kill you. It just depends on my mood. But when I teach X count, I teach my students 3, 5, 7, and that's my version of X count. So yes, Pam Sherman, you even need algebra for freaking kung fu, for good kung fu. It's true.
when folks come in and they ask you, what should I take? What martial art should I take? What do you tell them? How do you direct them?
Well, I ask them, first of all, I say, okay, usually most people come in and they either want to do one of two things when they come through that door. Learn how to defend themselves and get into better shape. Those are usually the two things. There might be a third reason that we can get into later about your inner workings or whatever, your lack of self-confidence, your problem with the babes, whatever your little song and dances with your inner workings. We'll get into that later. I may already have an idea about that just from watching you for about a minute or two. We'll get into that later, right? We're talking about internal arts, right? Spooky third eye stuff where you can size a person up from across the street. I mean, how does the Sifu size up the grasshopper in the bar playing pool that he knows is going to attack him 90 minutes later? Who shot first anyway, Han Solo or Greedo? You know, Han Solo eventually married a Jedi. Later, we find out Princess Leia is a Jedi, so he was destined to be. They had Jedi kids anyway. The Force is strong in the Skywalker clan, and maybe the Solo clan. How did he know Greedo was going to shoot? Did he have a third eye thing going on? So anyway, yeah, now I've gotten a little out there. But they either want to learn how to fight, get into better shape, do something mental and spiritual. Because the three basic concepts of martial arts are mind, body, and spirit. Those are intertwined. Those are inseparable. The beauty of martial arts is that they have all three intertwined to where if you're developing one, you're going to get the others. And the one benefit that martial arts has that no other sport or activity has is if it's a good one and it's legit, you should not only be able to protect yourself, but most importantly, your loved ones and your friends should some dumb ass get in your face. And do it with your mouth and your brain, the computer that's on your weapon, your tank or whatever. Your body is your weapon. That's what you say in Pukulan, Kuntao, Silat, whatever. Your body is your weapon. I forgot how to say it in Indonesian. I used to actually know that. Bahasa. Anyway. All that being said, your brain is your most important weapon versus the tank that it's riding on. That's the general that tells you whether or not you need to duke it out with the dude at the bar or the arcade, the video arcade, or the shopping mall, or the restaurant, or wherever the hell you are, the side of the road. Nowadays, people will road rage on your ass. You're just driving, minding your own business, and some jackwagon has a bad day. And before you know it, you're in a parking lot, parked awkwardly, illegally, where you know a cop's going to wonder what the hell, is a dope deal or a fight going on with these two dudes? Why are they parked in jet formation at the airport?
You know, and here in Texas, that's 8 years, man. So folks need to understand that road rage is 8 years if you're farting around in Texas trying to do that stuff.
You know, in New York, if you have a clip-on blade, Professor, and the tip of it, whether you're riding high or low profile in your pocket, front pocket, will get you 4 months. But if you could slip it down in your pocket, that's what officer, I can't remember his name now, Trent Yunker, Sifu Trent Yunker, Sigong Trent Yunker, whatever title he's got, my brother Trent. I miss you, Sifu Trent. We were both in New York for Mike Perella's business martial arts seminar. Love Mike Perella. I had a great time. A lot of people there. Trent and I stayed out all night long. New York really is the city that never sleeps, folks. But we met this particular kick-ass cop down there by those red bleachers in front of that McDonald's that everybody's seen in the movies. He goes, "Hey, boys, how you doing tonight?" We're like, "Hey, officer," looking at his name tag. "What's your name?" He's like, "My name is what? Can I see your knives, boys?" We're like, "Here you go." He's like, "These are beautiful. Put those inside your pockets, boys. I don't want to see those out here tonight with the tip of that sticking out of your pocket, and we're going to take you down to the station and keep you here for 4 months." And Trent goes, "Oh, shit. 4 months in New York, my wife will kick my ass." I'm like, "I ain't even married, and I don't want to stay here 4 months. I've been having a blast the last couple of nights, but nobody told me I couldn't wear this dang knife in Oregon. Putting it in your pocket will get you something. A ticket or so. I can't remember the law. I should probably know that better. Shame on me. But I know that putting it in my pocket with the clip and part of the point sticking out, that ain't gonna get me busted. But in New York, that's gonna get you 4 freaking months in the Hooskow, in the brig.
Absolutely.
Waiting to see a judge on a video camera before you can get out of there and go eat at McDonald's again where you got arrested by officer such and such.
You see, that's the type of those little things that we should know, like the law, is what people need to understand and should be trying not to teach, but having folks in their schools look it up and research it.
Three guys, Professor, I would recommend you get on your show. First and foremost, Rory Miller. Second of all, because he's a Kajukenpo brother. We're still connected in a few groups, but unfortunately not as friends on Facebook. Mac McRedmond, who is a retired law enforcement officer from the Pacific Northwest. He was a long time either a sheriff or sheriff's deputy or something like that. Maybe a corrections officer for Multnomah County or all of the above. Anyway, multi-decades, career, retired, all the shebang. He's seen it all. He's seen it all. Both these guys, Rory and Mac. Another third guy is a dude I've never met, but Casey Kakaisen. He's like a Midwest dude who's a law enforcement DTAC expert. That dude is the bomb. He's totally cool. These guys, see, that's one thing in the civilian sector. These guys are either active or retired law enforcement, possibly previous military experience, or all of the above, coming out telling civilians, look, you guys got to know the law, use of force, certain things. Most people don't understand the freeze. They don't understand. You want to talk about practical internal components and inner workings, Professor. One, the freeze will get your ass killed. Fight or flight is real. You're either going to freeze and get killed or freeze for a second and start running. You either freeze for a second and start striking or freeze for a second and start running. And that second, and the smaller you can make that second, that's how you survive, first and foremost. Second of all, you have to understand what you're doing to the person who's coming at you for whatever reason and where that's going to put you when all the dust settles. Because after you do whatever you do to get out of that physical scuffle that you just got yourself into or couldn't get yourself out of, you're either going to see a cop or a judge or both, all within a short period of time. If you survive. That old saying, what's that old saying? Better to be carried by 6 than judged by 12, right? Who doesn't know that one?
Absolutely. You see, a lot of folks don't understand
Wait,
that.
better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6? Right? Because we want to be alive and judged by 12 and carry, or is it better to be judged by 12 and carried by 6? Who knows? Do you want to go meet the Lord and be carried by 6 and not judged by 12? Or do you want to go before the 12 jurors and not be carried by the 6 pallbearers? Leave that up to the individual. But the point is, those 3 things are going to happen to you. You're going to freeze and either fight or try to run. How short you freeze or not is going to get your ass either alive, keep you alive, and get you out of there by either your feet moving quick or you use your self-defense skills and you're the one left standing and you're the one walking home. 2, you're going to see a cop and or the judge very shortly. And 3, you're going to have some PTSD issues to work through because you're either going to come out of there scared as friggity frack because somebody just about sent you home in a wooden box, or scared of what the hell you really are inside because you just did some serious shit to somebody who tried to do some serious shit to you. There's only one difference that's going to get you a sane man home at night, and that is good men who are prepared for violence, know and understand violence. I have to say, thankfully, I observed a lot of people of all different kinds working event security at concerts for coast-to-coast security in Portland back when we had a Memorial Coliseum where the Blazers played basketball and all kinds of other stuff went down. Concerts, right? Everything from Queensryche to Garth Brooks I saw into that roof. And then the Rose Garden. I worked for Coast to Coast a little bit once the Rose Garden was built. Saw a lot of good shows, some that I would have never paid to see, Professor. Like I never would have put money out, but I was working that night. So as long as I didn't look at the stage, right? I should have had my eyes on the audience at all times, looking for people who snuck dope in and were lighting a doobie or had brought their own booze in and starting to get stupid up in the bleachers or whatever the deal was that I was supposed to be looking out for. One of my girlfriends was the gal who would take your picture if we 86'd you. Back when you didn't take a digital picture and print it out, you had a Polaroid for her job. And then there were Polaroids at every exit or entrance of the Memorial Coliseum. By the time we hit the Rose Garden, we had digital pictures that someone would go on the back room at the break room and print out the HP shit, cut it out, or print out a whole. On 8x10, you could get a 6 up of all the 6 people that just got busted in the last 20 minutes. Get one printout instead of like 6 Polaroids held up with 6 tacks, saving on prints, tacks. You're doing a more efficient job. But I watch people of all kinds, drunk, stoned, sober, stupid, smart, you name it. I've seen it. Then I worked in bars. One of the funnest jobs I had was working at the Rock and Rodeo for a really short time in Eugene. That was literally a place where you'd sweep the eyeballs up at night. One night we were doing cleanup in the men's room. There was a bad scuffle earlier. Literally one of the urinals, the stand-up urinals, was half in pieces on the floor and half still attached to the wall by the cement type glue shit that holds it on there. Bottles and stuff were broken. I mean, bottles and stuff broken on the floor was common. A urinal broken on the floor was only one time I saw it. There was a few months I worked there. It was funny. Most of it was during the summer, so it was really hot time, literally weather-wise, and just to be working in a bar. People are out in the summer, especially college kids that didn't move away from the U of O, that are living in frat houses or whatever, where they're staying over during the months the other kids go home, or houses that are close to, like, down by the frat houses. There's all kinds of people living 5 at 6 at a time, and nice older houses that have 5 and 6 bedrooms or whatever they got going on. Party times in Eugene, right? So people would come in. One thing I learned working in a bar, if we opened at 8, right, by 10 o'clock at the latest, I know who I'm going to be detaining at the very end of the night when we close. And usually I have a pretty good idea in a short period of time, watching people as they come through the door, who's going to be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 as the night goes on, depending on how much they've had to drink, who they're with, what they're looking at when they come in. I can tell what somebody's up to just when they come in by watching where their eyes go, right, when they come through the front door. That's something people don't pay attention to, but when you work in any type of security profession where you're dealing with people that become unruly due to loud music that is thumping and grinding and shredding, rock concerts, rap concerts, country concerts get people fired up too. There are beer gardens at country concerts. Probably the only place you're not going to see a brawl is at the local Kenny G show. Kenny busts out the clarinet, does his thing. Nobody's throwing any beer bottles, right? Kenny G, not a fight scenario probably ever going to go down at the Kenny G concert. Operas, classical music, you're probably not going to see a brawl there. Rock concerts, country shows, hip hop stuff, raves.
Oh, for sure. Why? Why would you say that?
Well, you get loud music with the beat, thumping anything, guitars, bass, whatever. Music brings out the animal instincts. Honestly, you want to get out into the left field and talk about internal stuff. If you read the book of Enoch, which is not canon scripture, see, hell was prepared by God for the devil and his fallen angels. And you can call that demonic forces that might be all locked up or whatever you want to call that. But there are some spiritual forces listed in Ephesians and all throughout the Bible that are in and out of hell. Hell was prepared for them. These dark forces are real. And mankind is always in a struggle, either running towards sin as fast as they can to oblige their flesh in every way possible, taking every bit of money that they can grab in their hand. Drug addicts, what do they do with their first $20? Go get another fix. Some people save money to go out and eat food. Some people want to go buy clothes, nice cars. The more money you save, the more shit you can buy. It's crazy how we live here on this planet. All these great things that mankind builds, but we are really at the core of it susceptible to forces, powers, and principalities that are without, that may come within and start affecting the way we think, and the things like traditions of men, the things we think about, and the things we sign ourselves up for. For decades, I signed myself up for. I always joke and I say, the good Lord protected me from myself for over 3 decades, Professor, while I learned how to walk with God. Because for 30 plus years, I always said, it's my way or the highway, damn it. Now it's God's way. I think there's good things that we can do, whether it's internal and external or external. There are good things internal and external. There are bad things internal and external as martial artists, if we're going to stay on track, which I do my best, even though I'm babbling, contrary to popular belief. Now people can watch two parts of my ass babbling about all kinds of cool stuff with you, sir, and realize that, yeah, I might yak, I might interrupt, but I'm always listening, and do try to stay on track. So when people are thinking about training, you're thinking about protecting yourself, getting into better shape, you know, being more confident, feeling more secure and more safe. Martial arts are going to give you skills to talk your way in and out of whatever you want in life. Martial arts are going to get you physical skills that are going to enable you to get your ass out of the shit when shit hits the fan. If not, if you don't get those two skills, you better go sign up somewhere else. I don't care who you're training with. If you're not getting those skills, and if you're not getting in those skills in 2 weeks or less, you should be getting something, 1 or 2 skills the first night you walk out of a good school, period. If you're not, go try 2 or 3 more schools. Once you find a school where you're walking out of there with 1, 2, maybe 3 good little nuggets, one first night that may or may not be free, and you've paid $20 to $50 for a two-week course or whatever they're going to give you, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, that'll vary from school to school. Size of the school usually matters. The instructor's worried about paying the rent, so all you snot-nosed kids can keep coming back and asking stupid questions to learn the stuff that you really don't even have an idea what the hell you're asking about, and hopefully learn something. They just want to keep the doors open, teach your stupid ass, and hopefully you're learning something. That's all we really care about as good teachers. And if we're really doing our job, you're going to walk out of the first class going, holy shit, I didn't know it was that easy. That really worked. And it's going to work. You might not say that when you walk out the door, but you're going to know that it was true the minute you walked out that door, because whether it's a day later, an hour later, or a week later, when you try it on some poor guinea pig that you pick to try that shit on, and you tell them, grab me like you mean it, or punch me like you mean it, and they do, and it works, and you go back and you keep going back, and 3 months later and 6 months later and a year later, you just keep getting better. Then you keep going back, and then you find a guy I always have a thing, deliver more and promise less. And usually it's promise less and deliver more, because you make the promises to the student. You have to have a mission statement as a good teacher, and you have to say, here's what I guarantee I'm going to do for you if you show up once, twice, 3 times a week, however many times they're signed up for. And then you promise them, here's the things I'm going to, like in the Bible, in the Old Testament, God said, here's all these great things in Deuteronomy. Coach Torres calls it the benefits package. Coach Roberto Torres, great silate guy. You interviewed him recently.
Absolutely. And that's what happens with the school. Schools need to come back to the basics. There's a lot of Mac dojos, so we can get into that. I don't want to get into that. But there's a lot of good schools out there, and every city has one. Yep. And they have great instructors. And I don't care whether you're training in the garage, in the park. As soon as you start teaching, you just became a professional martial artist.
And that's the thing. That's the thing is a truly sincere student, Professor, to kind of just piggyback for a second. I'll keep this one short. Once you see the real deal teacher, whether he's in a backyard, a living room, a dojo, a freaking stadium, you're going to know. And you're going to go, that's the dude I want to give my 25 or 50 or 75 bucks to, whatever the hell they're charging. Remember, they're charging you something to keep it open so you can come back every week and hopefully freaking learn something. Right? Absolutely. That's all you do that's what you do every month, right? Every month, because dude, coach, how many months are you? It's month to month when you're running a dojo, especially if you don't have contracts. Some of the best guys around I know are teaching out of their backyard or some basement room, charging pennies on the dollar for instruction you can't get down at the McDojo on the corner at 10th and Oak or wherever you're at. You know?
Absolutely. That's what people don't understand. You have to search, you have to do your research and take it from there. I did have a
dojo in Eugene on 10th and Oak that some guys, I think that's how I met Sigong Bob Suttles, Professor Grandmaster. Sifu Bob, I like to call him Sifu Bob. He's always like, I put my pants on one leg at a time, Steve. Call me Bob. I'm like, man, I got to call you Sifu something. Don't call me Sifu late to dinner, I think was one of the first jokes he cracked.
I was going to open up a boxing gym that said, Black Guys United.
Who's that?
I said I was going to open up a boxing gym one time over in Dallas, and I was going to name it Black Guys United. And then I said, nah, I'm not going to. Then we moved back to Laredo because I was going to move the school from
What's
Irving.
With you Mexicans and whatnot? You got Hispanic in your blood or whatever? What do you got going on?
Oh, everything.
Hispanic. A lot of Texans have the Hispanic and the Tex-Mex kind
Sure.
of vibe. So like I was watching old Fluffy, what's his name, comedy guy the other night, right? He was funny.
Chingazos are us.
Who was it? What's his name? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Fluffy, the heavyweight Chicano, Mexican, Latino, Hispanic, whatever you want
Priest
to
or
put.
whatever. He beat somebody up.
No, he's a big chunky dude. He's funny as hell. He does stand up. Oh, my buddy Jared Van Newland loves him. But he had this thing on I was watching. I think it was on Netflix. I was just watching a clip. But he and another black comedian named G something or other. Anyway, G something or other was in town. So Fluffy, the Hispanic guy, he was driving out to one of his shows or something, and he seen a billboard. He goes, "Oh man, G's in town. We got to stop by and go see G." So it all unfolds and turns out that he gets this idea that he's going to prank G at the hotel and give him a racist gift basket. So he gets all these black people to help him compile this racist gift basket that he gives this black guy, this other comedian, stand-up guy, who is standing behind backstage waiting to come out and help collaborate on this fine endeavor, right? They go at it. And it's a Mexican and a black guy both talking about this racist gift basket, which did have items in it that would probably be labeled. Like the black guy goes, you know, the crazy thing is I like that stuff. And then it just got funnier from there. And it's funny because, like, you know, you and I in the 80s watched Eddie Murphy and all these. I was talking with my buddy, Kajukenpo, one Hop Kundo brother, Sifu Eddie Willis. Man, I used to train with him and Sifu John Knutson back at the old Canyon Boulevard. One Hop Kundo, Sifu Aldecasco School. Whew, those are some good days back in the early 90s. I love those guys. But I was recently blessed with a really good convo on the phone. I was on the horn with Sifu Eddie Willis. We were talking about the old days where Rodney Dangerfield, Eddie Murphy, let's throw some other guys, white, Hispanic, black, it didn't matter what race. They would get up on the stage, stand up, or get on the screen TV or get on the movie screen, whatever, throw out the racist slurs from all angles. It didn't matter. I always joke I hate everybody equally. But back then, people had thicker skin. Jokes were a hell of a lot funnier back then, in my opinion. And they almost had a more clean cut, like there was like an art form. And back then, okay, there was an art form to comedy that everybody understood when they walked through the door. Talk show hosts on the late night had smarter monologues than just ripping on the president all freaking night long, guys. Come on. That's getting old. Cut that crap out. Carson had a monologue. Leno had a monologue. These guys, Leno wasn't too far back. Oh, but the networks got rid of him because, see, now there's this. Can I complain about the leftist agenda on this show, Professor? Because I want to. I'm sorry. I try to take a stance that is Christian value. I don't even like the word Christian. I'm a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Hallelujah. But I do take a stand for right is might. Might is not right. And this is my fact checker, ladies and gentlemen, the word of God. And so I
Absolutely. And with that, we'll leave this, and I'm going to say this. It's been a great time doing this interview and doing this podcast. We have to go out there because, folks, the martial arts connects people. A lot more people are more connected in the martial arts than what folks could even imagine. And that's what I tell folks. You know, if they say, so-and-so did not cross-train, really? They cross-train left and right all over the place. They're friends with them. And no, they're not. And all of a sudden somebody else comes out, hey, remember you were in this book or what, this or that. We're all over the place. Those, like it says, birds of a feather flock together. The true guys that were doing the martial arts for what it is, they were all together.
Oh man.
And then some of them are not. You know, either you're gonna be working out with somebody that is, or you're not. And if you go into a martial art and you're going to try to learn how to fight, and you're always complaining about something, the martial art's not for you. The McDojos are down the street. That's just the way it is.
Some of the best stories, Professor, are, do you remember the time in that dude's backyard when we were training? That's a great story waiting to happen. We know that. Or do you guys remember we were all out in that park kicking each other's ass? That's always a great story waiting to happen. Even, I love there's a slang word, Kajukenpo. I love it because really there's a lot of guys in not just Kajukenpo, but any art where they're teaching out of the garage or the basement or the backyard or the park, the local park, whatever, find that guy, seek that guy. He's probably asking for half of what the other guys are. And, you're always paying, if you really love your Sifu or your sensei or your guru or your Tuhan, you're paying them for their time. They're taking time out of their day, whether it's, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever, to deal with you and try to teach you what you came there for. And they're doing their best job. They're trying to pull out all the stops to keep you from making the same stupid mistakes they made along the way.
Absolutely.
Help you become 2 times better, twice as fast as they were, right? We always want our best students to become twice as good as us, 2 times faster, right? If we're doing that, we're doing a good job, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So I'll leave everybody with this. Folks, my brother Steve and I just want to wish you guys, if you guys are searching for a martial arts school, do your research. Go visit. If the person closes the door and says you cannot see class or you cannot partake in class, walk
That's
out.
probably good. That's good, actually.
Okay.
That's
and for
good.
parents, if you go into a school and they're teaching a kids class and they lock you outside and you can't see what's going on, get the kid out, get the hell out of the way. Right?
But
Fast.
you know what? Maybe call back, because you know what? That's actually the kind of school you want to go back to, because I would actually tell visitors, you can watch for 10 or 15 minutes once or twice, and then you can call me to set up a week of free classes or whatever I was offering. But I don't let people come and spectate infinitely and learn what I'm teaching my students that are paying, so that you can maybe beat my student at the bar next Friday if they're working at the back door and knock them out or whatever.
That's a good viewpoint. What I do tell folks is, if they come in there, come in, try out a class. You like it, fine. You don't like it, fine.
Most guys who are trying to pay the rent, they do give a free class right as you walk in the door. I like anyone who comes right through my door. I'll go, take your socks off if we're training barefoot. If we got shoes on and it's a hard floor session or whatever, we'll leave the shoes on, whatever. So most of the time, if someone just comes in off the street, most I might ask is, take your shoes off and come out. I'll show you a couple things you can take home right away. That's what you do, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely.
Every good teacher really does that, I think. If they're running a commercial school, you want to engage that student the minute they walk through that door.
Absolutely. And you have to make that, maybe the school's not for you. Maybe there's a vibe that's not there. But that's just the way it is.
Well, they're sizing you up to see if you're giving them what they came for, and you're sizing them up like, are they going to keep coming back? Is this kid or this adult or this? Because sometimes we get the old person, the elderly folks come in. Maybe they just got robbed the week before and they finally went, I've been thinking about, everybody talks about Professor Buitrón. Maybe it's time I go actually check that dude out and try his free class or his free week or whatever, because shit, man, they just got robbed a week or 2 ago. Wow, that really happens, folks. That's a reason.
Here's one. When I first started, I moved and I opened up the Irving School. That was in Irving, Texas. We passed out a bunch of flyers and we went out there to downtown Dallas. And we went to all the nightclubs and we put a flyer in all the windows and left.
That's a good old school tactic, right? Was that 80s or 90s?
It was in the 90s, right there. That was the best thing going out. And all of a sudden, it was a Saturday night class. And this guy comes in, black eye, busted lip. I said, his name was Jorge.
Hey, that tells you right away, Professor, where your flyers came from. The grocery store, the dance club, right?
I told him, why do you want to learn martial arts? He goes, man, I was beat up on Thursday. And I go, how'd you find the flyer? Oh, it was in the parking lot in a nightclub.
Yeah,
he was a great student. He was a great student. I still
You
remember
can almost tell too. Like, you've had schools that have been in a certain neighborhood or whatever for 5 years or 10 years, because you've been around for decades, right? So the longer you're around, the longer you can kind of tell when people come with a look through the door, or if they got a black eye or whatever. You kind of know what neighborhood they came from before they showed up at your school, right? Whether they came looking all freaked out, which maybe they got carjacked at the local market, right? Or they come in with the black eye because they got beat up at the nightclub, right? You kind of know.
Absolutely. You know right away what's going on. Absolutely. It's called time, and you just kind of just end up learning how to read people.
Yeah,
well, my brother.
Are we getting that old?
Absolutely.
I know I'm almost 50. What are you, like 49?
No, I'm 53. I want to be 53 in 3 weeks.
You're not an old timer yet, sir, but I knew you had at least 1 or 2 years ahead of me. I knew there was at least a little gap there, but
We'll get there. Until next time, my brother, you stay safe. And folks,
thank you.
keep the peace. Till next time.
God bless you.
Always be safe.
Mahalo.